wanted to give an update on what I've been doing with the Phoenix machines. It's been a long time since my last update. Um, so a lot has changed since then, in some ways. So when I last update was about the new operating system I was toying with for Phoenix, which I still am on, called OSF. But some things did change, and I want to cover some of those. So back in May, I think I took a break from working on OSF and wanted to do something a little different. I was blocked on a couple of things there anyway, and so I decided, hey, I have this game called Lair of the Lich King, which was my 2020 COVID project. It's a roguelike, which, for the game Rogue, it's basically like not a text adventure, but a top-down adventure. Um, and I wrote it for the Commodore 128 in 80 color mode, for which there's like two games in existence. And basically, this is like an ode to text games. What you can do with it. So it doesn't actually use graphics, but it does use the 128. Has the ability like a Commodore 64 to have a custom character set, so you can see that. Um, and that was about 90% done when I set it aside. I kind of ran into as far as I could go without needing to do music, and that pretty much stumped me because I'm not very musical, and that's also tricky. Um, this program was written in C using the CC65 compiler system. There's a few routines that are in assembly. And I thought, well, okay, that was mostly done. Phoenix has this wonderful text mode, and you can do custom character sets. So I bet that can't be too hard. So, what I initially ordered was the A2560K because it's just awesome, and I love the 68K processors too, and got this fantastic keyboard with amazing colors, and but that hasn't come yet. But there's a nice emulator for it, so I was working on that. And then I got with the emulator, I got so far, and then I was kind of like, well, okay, I don't have any actual hardware, but I was able to acquire a used C50 FMX, which is one of the C50 computers from Phoenix. And this is a board actually for a different one, but they're all pretty similar. And the FMX is like an 8/16-bit computer. So with that, that let me get farther. And on September 4th, I had it running for the first time, using the Eclipse compiler and a debug port. And I've had kind of trouble, like I kind of broke the computer, the Phoenix with the CF card reader doesn't work. So for a while I was out of business, but Eclipse has a nice little serial port that you can use, and end up using a Linux box as a go-between between my Mac and the C256 because the serial chip in there is not compatible with the drivers for the modern Macs. But it actually works out okay. You can Mac the Linux box is headless too, so it all works out. And I got that running, and then a couple bad things happened. One, I updated the firmware on the 256, and it worked, but instantly none of the keyboard worked anymore. And I didn't really have a solution for that. And I was talking with the Eclipse guy, and but then another thing happened, which was the Midwest Vintage Computing Festival came up, and I kind of threw the family in the car and drove over to Chicago, and they did cool things, and I did nerdy things. But two bad things happened there. One, there is an auction, and they it's just basically this Vintage Community Festival is free to go to, but they do this auction, and it's a lot of fun actually. And there was a next cube up, and it was in really bad shape, and I bought it. So because I've always wanted a next, and like I said, I really like 68K machines. So I was like, oh no, I'm just going to spend all my time repairing this because this is actually the best angle of this computer. The back is totally rusted. The boards looked okay, and the battery hasn't leaked. So that in theory, I have possibility here. And I didn't really know about an X because it had already been unapproachable, but after I bought it, because it was an auction, I kind of do it, right? I started researching. It turns out I'm going to need all kinds of things, but there is a little community around that. So I am looking forward to playing with this. I have not actually, this is not the problem. This was the problem. Last day I was there, there was so the Vintage Computer Festival, there's all kinds of computers all over, and I had a chance to sit down with someone who had some pets, and I just started playing these old, games that were there. And I was like, oh, this is so much fun to have, these computers are fun. I never actually played with a pet much, right, at all. Um, but the whole all-in-one aspect and green screen. And so I started driving home. I was like, some long drive, right? I was like, I wonder. Uh, so before talking about that, let's compare these machines. So on the left there, we've got the A2560K and then the C56 256 FMX and then the PET. So first of all, memory-wise, the A2560K, I mean, that's a 1632-bit. Well, this is actually a 32-bit computer, so it's got great stuff. It's got 4 megabytes of like SRAM, and then it's got another 64 megabytes of basically, I think, expansion RAM, and it's got 8 megabytes of video memory. So, awesome. Uh, the C256 is got 4 megabytes of system RAM and 4 megabytes of video RAM, which is both really nice. PET has 32K of RAM. Now you do get what 1K of video RAM because that's actually in a different part, and so you don't have to use any of your 32K for screen memory. So I guess that's good, but that's not much. Um, Thinking about the horsepower, the A2560K, right? It's nice. That's a 6840. That's got 25 megahertz, and that's 6840 25, so that's nice. And then you've got the C256 is a 14 megahertz, so that's not awesome 14 megahertz because it's a 6502 basically. So a lot of operations, but hey, not too shabby. What's the PET got? Well, the PET has you know a 1 megahertz 6502. So, say the PET, it's 4032s. I'm not sure the exact year they came out, but they're all very similar to the 1977 PET, better keyboard, um, more memory, not that much more. But they're all basically that 1977 design. So, okay, yeah, 1 megahertz, that's not awesome. Also, it doesn't have any graphics. So it's PET-ski, kind of like character graphics, and it's 40 columns. Well, so there's a challenge for me, right? I mean, you got to get from a machine that ran on 4 megabytes plus video RAM down to 32K. I mean, how hard can that be, right? You need a strategy for this, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm making a strategy. I'm like, okay, well, I get to save some memory because it's not 80 columns, so that's already freeing up 1K, and then also it's not color, so that's a K. It's actually 2K because 80 by 25. Um, but I would have to cut out some features. Do I cut out some of the things I really like about it? Well, all that hurts, right? To cut that stuff out, right? Um, and then it's like, well, okay, just the way the 6502 structure works with C. I mean, it's like these nice kind of object-oriented structures I use in C, a lot of structs, that are, things on this thing has these other things, which I love. That's kind of, I like programming that way, and it keeps everything kind of encapsulated. Um, uh, so those have to go because you really want to go with global variables when you're doing a 6502. It just all that passing on the stack is killing you. So that was painful. Then we're gonna have to use code overlays. So code overlay in this case, like so, if you have 22K or say there's 25K of accessible memory because the the CC65 machine itself, the machine, it needs some for the base C stuff, right? And then there's some stuff in there that you need just to access the kernel. So with the overlays, you're like, okay, I've got the main code that's always going to be available, but then I'm going to swap out all these other layers. So like, say you go to inventory, well, where's the code for inventory? We're going to read it from disk, and then that's resident in memory, and then you can do that, and then swap it back to the next thing you need. So that's okay. The code gets a little weird, a little funky because you got to move functions around into different files. Each overlay's got to be its own file, essentially. You can do it with pragmas if you want to. I had to turn off all the CC, well, not all, but mostly CC65 optimization, which is, stuff it'll do some kind of, unrolling of stuff and make things faster, but that eats bytes. So that had to go. Um, and then what I did with that C128 version back in 2020 is, like the C128 has a pretty interesting little memory map because it's got an actual MMU in it. Um, and there's little bits everywhere. And so like I basically mapped the entire C128 memory space, including the zero page stuff very carefully. So I could find here's a byte I can use in zeros page, here's a few stuff that's used for a cassette interface and I can use that. So I can, I can use these 32K or 32K, I should be so lucky. I can use these 32 bytes for something else, and so but you look at the pet memory, it's really simple. And it's basically, this is the starting part of memory you can use. This is the end. There's like 4K worth of RAM up in the screen memory, and it's only, the 4032s only use 1K. And then you're like, oh, can I test that other stuff and see if that's available? Nope. It all mirrors itself. Um, and none of that was like it is RAM, it is not ROM, but it's not really there, I think, because they must just be cycle wired in, serially wired into each other. I think if you've got an 8032, which is the 80 comp version, those are actually, it is using them. So not much to get there. Okay, well, yeah, 32K. So I started this memory reduction log. I'm like, okay, every time I'm going to change something, I'm going to, start. Here's how. Remember, basically with the overlays of like, okay, my main code, that's like all the code and bytes that you need to, you're going to, your BSS and, your read-only data and stuff all fit in that main part, and then the rest is for overlay. So, when I started the first time I ran it, said, okay, your main thing from C65 is, okay, code overflows the memory area main by, 33K bytes. So, and, code is only one part of it, right? You've also got the BSS and the RO data and some other stuff, right? Okay, so, you make some changes, I'm like next, and get down there. And I'm not showing you all these. I'm just going to go through a little bit. This is probably like a tenth or 100th of what I did. So, okay, shaved down to bottom. Now I'm 24K over, and now I'm like, okay, my, the overlays are actually overrunning too at this point because I've shifted stuff out of code into start shifting them into the overlays. Then I'm doing some more reduction. I'm getting it down, right? It's going down a little bit. Sometimes you go down by 800K. Sometimes you go down by, 400K. Doing this over and over again. And I'm like checking out features here and stuff I like, and it's painful. So for example, getting rid of there's some gain strength animation. There's some different animations. Those have to go. Okay, when you get it done, so look, it's getting reasonable. I've already cut the main overage down from 33 to 17K. Sure, that's good. Start moving stuff out of the OO structure, or sorry, object-oriented structure into just like into global. It's getting pretty reasonable now, right? Down to 10K over in main, and just like 2K over in the biggest overlay. Combat's my biggest overlay. You just then you start getting into like stuff that's not saving you very much at all, but you got to just keep chewing through it. So, for example, I had two sets of key shortcuts, so you could do one with the keypad and one if you wanted to do like WASD. But all that stuff is bytes, right? So for that, save 114 bytes, great. So get down there, right? It's like 57. Now we're only like 5,700 bytes over in main and less than 600 bytes over in the overlay. Yeah, more stuff, moving more stuff into global, saving some more space. I'm down to 4,300 over there. I'm like, okay, there's not that much more to save, but maybe I can make it. And then, by the way, these notes here, these are literally like my notes from that time. So one of my notes has this. Oh, I realized I had forgot to link in the strings. The strings are all in a like localized.c is where I have all the strings. As soon as I realized that and linked it, it went from, basically it picked up 7,800 more bytes. And at that point, main was going to be 51K and there was only 22K available, 23K available. So I was like, okay, what does that mean? Well, that's kind of what it means. So that was that point. I surrendered, totally gave up. But wait, follow one bad idea with another bad idea. That's always been my motto. There's also the CBM II. This is sometimes called this is some different names, but like, it's B128, B256, or sometimes CBM 710, 720. This was a really awesome looking computer. It's a successor timeline wise anyway to the 64. It's not really have much in common with it. It was meant to be a business machine. So it's got 80 columns of text. That's nice. It's green screen only. Um, it has an actual SID chip in there, a fully functional SID chip. It can access, it comes with a minimum of 128K. There is also, if you got like say the, B256 or the CBM 720, you got, 256K. Has a 2 megahertz, so it's twice as fast as the pad. Unfortunately, it has probably like one of the world's worst banking systems, but you get what you get. So it's like a pet with a cooler design and a bit harder to use. But because of that banking scheme, which is really awful for programming in most cases and does create some serious slowdowns, because anytime you want to get to the video RAM is in bank 0, but all of your code runs in bank 1, and it's basically like I'm not saying it's like a pinhole you're passing it through, but it's close enough. But we have a game. There we go. Lair the Lich King for CBM II. This, I think, will make it the second CBM II game ever made. That's not registered in BASIC and converted from some pet thing. And that is including a really kind of interesting shooter that someone made, a space shooter that someone made like 5-6 years ago. So anyway, I think we should take a look at that. Okay, so this is Lich King is running in Vice, and we will give it a show. And my keyboard is really clicky, so expect to hear sounds. I always have to pick a good name for you. So the one thing about this is every level you get a different kind of a little bit of information about. Sometimes it's relevant information, sometimes it's just kind of mood setting, but basically while it's creating the dungeon, it's something to read while it's churning away. But also there's some hints about the gameplay and just give a little flavor. So done. Still, actually, now this is where you see it's slow, because right now it's actually loading passing stuff off to the screen. Okay, so there we have it. It's a dungeon. It's a roguelike. We are the little @ sign, traditional in a roguelike. We're out in a hallway. That's another room. That's a room. Okay, so there's a monster coming towards us. And there's something over there. And this is where, like the kind of lack of custom character graphics does make you use your imagination, because, you've got 120 characters in this machine, and then or their inverse, and that's it. So you just move into things to attack them. Your little message in the buffer: you did 2 damage to the giant rat, and the giant rat missed you. Over here in the lower right, there's some stats, like the H is the hit points. So I have currently 6 hit points. The pound sign is my shield, so that's my defensive score is 50. The arrowy thing is kind of representing my weapon. In this case, I'm using a spear, and it's got an offensive bonus of 5. The up arrow that's my experience level. I'm a first level character. This is Dungeons and Dragons, right? The less than sign is the stairs, so that's the level of the dungeon I'm on. I'm on level 1, and this little dot represents how many steps you've taken. And you want to kind of keep your steps down, because the longer you're here, the greater chance the Lich King is going to find you, and he's very, 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 very strong. You basically don't want to find him. So you just keep on. The rat is starting to move away. Now this is another place where like the lack of color is hard, because in the C50 the C128 version, or the Foenix version of this, they turn like yellow when they're scared or something, right? But okay, victory, we beat that rat. And we can pick that up, and you can see as I get, there's kind of an area that you can see, and there's an area you cannot see, and some levels are darker than others, and then you see a lot less unless you have a lantern, which you want to have. Dollar sign, unsurprisingly, some money. There's a skeleton. Okay, beat the skeleton. Uh-oh, Kobold got me. Okay, so that's it for Frankie Two Toes. His life is over. So you died in level floor 1 with 54 gold, and you've got you've got top 10. There are also badges you can earn as you go through. So Frankie Two Toes unfortunately died before he had a chance to get any badges, so not much for him. Anyway, that's the game. It's very, very roguelike-y. There are a lot of different monsters. There's a lot of different weapons. There's magic spells and potions and magical devices. It's a lot of fun. I've beaten it, I believe, twice in 2 years, so it's also not super easy. But it does have a checkpoint save, which is very much unroguelike. That should not have allowed that, but I think I'll leave that in there. So every level, as you complete the level, it'll save it once, and then if you die, you can start over if you want to from that place. Very much that's breaking the rules of roguelike. Okay, that was Lich King for the B128, and you're like, hey, I thought this was a Foenix development vlog. What's going on? Well, it's all part of the grand picture here. So I'm going to go back to that and talk about the plan. So I'm going to give, this is basically what I've been working on since September 10th or whenever the Vintage Festival was, and it's now October 18th. So I'm going to give myself another week. I want to get the C128 version now up to speed. The B128 version is essentially done. I don't have any more bugs in there that I know of, and I'm not sure I'll do the music for it. That's actually really tricky with the banking in the B128. But I would like to catch the C128 version is 2 years old, and a lot of stuff has changed, and I've got some parts that weren't done which I want to port over, and then some fixes I want to bring over. I'm going to do that. I'm going to give some about a week for that. Then I want to go back to the C256. I've seen that. I think I saw that Glipsy figured out the interrupts thing on the C256, so I should be able to get that working again. And that game was really close. So I wanted to bring over some improvements I made on the B128 back over to the Foenix. And the B128 version is actually based on the Foenix version. It is not based on the C128 version at all. I think my notes say I've got a few more bugs to fix in the Foenix version. Hopefully, maybe get a real A2560K. I know some of them are shipping. I think I'm a little bit further down the line though. Or maybe the F256 Junior is going to come, and then it'd be fun to make I would like to make a 256 Junior version. I don't think that'll be too hard. I mean, I got it working on a CBM II. I don't think that'll be too hard. Once I get a real machine that works, because again, mine's a little broken. There's no disk working on mine. I've got a little, just tiny bit of work to get the game load save and game data, kind of config data loading. Yes, I'd like to do a 256 version, 256 Junior version. I have maybe an offer for someone to help me with the theme music, but it's going to be, I need to write a basic little player for it in C that'll attach it to the game. And then I've got to finish up the manual, the artwork, and the package. I want to do, my goal here is to do a real box, so it's in a real manual, so with a floppy disk in there, hopefully. And the business plan. Yeah. Well, I think you should have a business plan because I think the reason I went and spent all that time on the first the pad and then the B286 version is I was at Vintage Computer Festival. I thought, you know what? Nobody knows about Phoenixes, but there's a lot of people there at these festivals and other places who know about the old computers, right? And I actually like those CBM II computers a bit. I don't know. There's much point doing a C64 version. Again, probably not enough memory, but I don't know. But there's like a billion C64 games, no one cares. But so my kind of plan is let's do the C128 version. Nobody makes C128 games. Let's do the B128 version. Nobody makes those. And have those and the Foenix version available. And my goal is like to have all this done for next Vintage Computer Festival in Chicago. So that's next year. I think I can do that. Possibly even well before that. I've already got a guy making artwork for it. I haven't had a chance to actually do anything with it yet, but I have a manuals like 60% done. Got a lead on the boxes. So again, I want to get that part. I want this to be like an experience. If you buy this, be an experience of like getting a game back in the day in a way, right? With a nice box because I like boxes. Yeah, and then at the end, profit, and of course that is humor because there's no way that there's any. This is a profitable enterprise. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. That was it. Thank you if anyone listened. I think I'll probably do a little bit more regular, but I hope the next swap update I'll have it running again on some Foenix hardware. Thanks, everyone.